Hey everyone, welcome to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. We are coming to you, as always, courtesy of our broadcasting partner, moretalk.tv. Joining me today on the show is Dr. Shelley Kaehr. Dr. Shelley Kaehr is one of the world's leading authorities on the practical uses of gems and stones for energy healing and mind-body medicine. She is a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming and the author of a number of books, including Lifestream, Journeys into Past and Future Lives, Top 10 Healing Stones of All Time, and Edgar Cayce's Guide to Gemstones, Minerals, Metals, and More. Her latest book, out now, is entitled Edgar Cayce Sacred Stones, the A to Z Guide to Working with Gems to Enhance Your Life and Health. In this, she provides Edgar Cayce's advice for the use of gems and stones for a variety of life issues and enhancements. Shelley also travels throughout the world, conducting thousands of journeys through hypnosis and training energy healing practitioners. Shelley, thank you so much for being with us today on Reflections.
Thank you so much, Brenton. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Shelley, for our listeners who may not be familiar with your line of work, can you give us a little bit about your background?
Yes, let's see, in terms of my work, I've been a hypnotherapist since 2000. I specialize in working with my clients using the gems and minerals and energy healing modalities in combination with past life regression work.
Excellent. And can you tell us how you first came across gem healing and how you were able to incorporate it into your own practice?
Yes, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and my dad used to be the manager of the company that owned the Kingman and Bisbee turquoise mines back in the 70s. So these aren't really operational mines anymore, but back in the day, they were some of the most productive turquoise mines in the world. And so I spent my childhood, out digging up rocks and doing hiking and exploring the mines. And so it was just kind of something that's really a part of who I actually am. It's just something I've been around my whole life. When you're around something that you don't always really see all of the things that can do for you. And so it wasn't until I was in my private practice that I met a Native American shaman, and he taught me about the fact that when you place stones on the body, that they can cause energetic shifts in people. And so I learned from him, and then I kind of took it from there and started exploring all the different stones and minerals and what they can do for people and how powerful
Excellent.
they are.
And Shelley, this idea of gem healing may be a bit of a new concept to some of our listeners. Can you kind of give us a background as to how exactly gem healing works if somebody were to ask you that?
Yes. Basically, everything in the universe, even what we would consider inanimate objects, have a life force to them. And so gems and minerals, since they are from the earth, each stone has a different vibrational frequency. And so if we place stones on the physical body, then the stone has a certain frequency, and then you and I have a certain frequency. So when the two get together, they I call it getting into an energetic rapport. It'll actually shift the vibrational frequency of your physical body, and different stones tend to attract different things to you. So it's kind of like a few years ago when all of the law of attraction was really in as a concept that, my thoughts are creating my reality. And so what I focus on tends to bring me what I want. The gemstones basically are vibrating at different frequencies, and depending on which stone you use, they bring you those things that we all want, which, if we want to get down to the fundamental level of it, I break it down into the fact that we really only want three things. We want love, health, and then whatever you would call that feeling of being secure in the world, whether it's financial prosperity or just knowing that you have everything that you need and you're prosperous. So the stones, different ones, are vibrating at those frequencies. So when we place them on the body, it shifts our energy so that we can begin to use them as physical tools to help us manifest those laws of attraction that we all want in our lives.
Excellent. Excellent explanation. I'm sure this is all included in your new book, which I want to touch a little bit on this. You have a new book out called Edgar Cayce Sacred Stones. And I understand you wrote another book for the A.R.E. about 10 years ago called Edgar Cayce's Guide to Gemstones, Minerals, Metals, and More. And I'm curious, taking a step back a little bit, how did you first get involved with the A.R.E. and come across the Cayce material and its connection to gemstones?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have always been attracted to the Edgar Cayce readings personally, and back in my early career, I'm really good friends with Dr. Raymond Moody, who wrote the book Life After Life. And so him and I did some lectures together, and he invited me to one of his seminars where I met my friend A.R.E, who was working at the Edgar Cayce Foundation at the time, and I gave her some of my books. I had one called Origins of Huna that Dr. Raymond Moody had written the foreword for, and then I wrote this other book called Gemstone Journey. So I gave it to her. She took it home and she started reading it, and she sent me in the mail this little book that was written in 1964 called Stones, and it had 22 items in it that I really was not familiar with. So I took the book, and every year I like to go out to the Tucson area because there's a huge gem show out there. So I took the book with me, and I went on a bit of a journey to try to find some of the things that were listed in this book. And while I was driving back home, I thought, you know what? 1964, that was a long time ago. Maybe I should call them and see if they'd be interested in having me update this information. So I call her on the phone, and I swear to you, Brenton, that literally the day before I called her, they were in the conference room going, holding up the book going, can someone please update this material? And so it was just like divine guidance. I mean, it was such a blessing to be able to write that first book. And so now that this new book is out, this has been 10 years since my first book has come out. So I'm just so honored and excited to be working with the Edgar Cayce Foundation again. It's really, really neat.
Excellent. And how did this new book come about? What was the brainstorming, or kind of how did you birth this new book? Where did that come from?
It really still came from the things that happened 10 years ago, because back then I really, I have a kind of a more auditory way of receiving information. I really felt and kind of heard the inner guidance that I was going to write another book for the Edgar Cayce Foundation. It's something that I've always known that I was going to do. And way back many, many years ago, occasionally I'd be like, well, how about this? I'd send them an idea. They go, no, 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 that's not it. How about that? No, that's not it. And so it's kind of been something on my mind, even as all these years have gone by at a subconscious level. It's just something that, I've always known that I was going to do. Like at a soul level, I believe that we all come in here. While there's certain things that are happening spontaneously, I believe that we have contracts and things that we are destined to do before we got here. And so I've never shaken the belief that I was going to do this. And what happened was a few years ago, I had a family member who, long story, but started kind of going back over some of it just, how like when things happen in your life, it causes you to kind of take a look and say, wait a minute, where am I at right now? Is everything in my life the way I want it to be? So I kind of went on what I would call like a life review, kind of without going into a light tunnel or anything. I decided to give myself a life review and look back on all of the things that I had done up to this particular point in my life. And so I was guided to read my books in the order in which they were written. And so I started, and when I got to reading the Edgar Cayce material, I ran across some notes, and it just suddenly hit me. I said, oh my gosh, this is not finished yet. I am not done saying everything that needs to be said about this, because I had done a lot of research. See, like, I am sure you can appreciate this, and I know everybody watching can, that when you read their Edgar Cayce readings and when you really start to absorb the material, the richness of what is here causes thoughts to manifest themselves. So as a result of writing the book 10 years ago, I wrote several other things and had some notes in the files and things like that that were inspired by my original research. And one of the main things that I've been wanting to write for years is a book about the stones that are in the Bible. And I think that the reason for me personally that I want to write about this is because, like you said earlier, this idea of gems being healing is so new to so many people that sometimes people will go, hey, that's evil. There's something wrong with that. Well, no, you know what? There is nothing evil about it. It was in the Bible. And so it's just something I've been wanting to put out there, because I think it's important that people understand that, God put everything in the material world here for a purpose and for our being able to use and understand it. And so it's just been on my mind. And when I found these old notes, I just had, all this time I've been sending him these little ideas, and it just hit me. I said, oh my gosh, I am going to write. And so when I contacted them this time, just knowing that they were going to go for this, I said, well, I really want to call it Stones of the Bible. And they said, well, how about let's call it Sacred Stones? Because the truth is, it's not just the Bible. The stones and minerals have been used throughout indigenous cultures and in different religious settings in all cultures all over the world for thousands and thousands of years. And so sure enough, in my file, along with these other old notes, there was a little document called Sacred Stones. And so that is how the book came out. And it is meant to be, and it makes me feel, it makes me feel so, I can't even describe it, the happiness I have at knowing that that thing that has been on my mind for 10 years has actually come to pass. And it makes me feel just so grateful and excited. And that's it.
Wow. Thanks for sharing, Shelley. That was wonderful. So I guess now that we've talked about the book, let's dive a little bit into some of the topics. And I know you talked about some of the stones that were both mentioned in the Bible and mentioned in the Cayce readings. So can you tell us a little bit about the stones that were mentioned in the Cayce readings?
Yes, the number one stone that was mentioned in the Edgar Cayce readings is Lapis Lazuli. And of course, the book has many different sections in it about all the different stones. And I talk about those stones that are in the Bible. In the Bible, sapphire is mentioned in the King James Version. But what's interesting when you start to look into the Bible is that in the New International Version of the Bible, the lapis lazuli replaces the sapphire. And that's one of the most interesting things about doing the research is that when you think about like biblical probabilities about where certain kinds of mineral deposits actually exist in the earth, it's probably more likely that the lapis lazuli was actually the stone in the Bible rather than the sapphire, which is originally mentioned in the earlier versions. And so in the Edgar Cayce readings, Edgar Cayce mentioned lapis more than any other stone. So let's just say validating for me is the things that I was taught and the things that I was experiencing in terms of the stones and in terms of placing stones on the body, having them affect the vibrational frequency. These are the same things that Edgar Cayce talked about. And in terms of the lapis, he just said it's a very high frequency spiritual stone that can help to shift the vibrations of the person and just really tap into that spiritual essence of people. And so it's a very, very powerful stone. He talked about the fact that the stone lapis actually sings. It has a vibrational frequency that's really high. And I've actually experienced this myself. I have a picture in the first book I wrote, Edgar Cayce's Guide to Gemstones, of this little lapis that when you put it up to your ear, you could really actually hear there's this, this really, really high frequency, and it really does sing. And he talked about that. I mean, it's so amazing.
That's wonderful. And I know not only the lapis that you talked about in the book, you talk about a lot of other stones, and one in particular, or so one group of stones you mentioned is the stones of the rays. Can you tell us a little bit more about these?
Yes, I'm really interested in the fact that the gemstones, like I mentioned earlier, are vibrating at frequencies. These frequencies can actually match the colors in the rainbow spectrum. And so certain stones are vibrating at color frequencies that can also be translated into musical notes. So the stones of the rays would be the ruby, which is the red ray. And so that's vibrating at the same frequency as the color red. Rubies are also a stone that's found in the Bible. The other one is a carnelian, and I do have right over here. These are some of the stones that were actually pictured in the book, so I'm going to hold them up for the viewers. Here's one. And this is another one. These are actually pictures that are going to be in the new book, Edgar Cayce's Sacred Stones. The carnelian is one of my personal favorites. It is vibrating at the frequency of the orange ray, and so it opens up the sacral chakra, which is the center of creativity. Also, what's interesting about carnelians that I discovered many years ago is that if you hold them or, if you place them on, this is where your sinuses are. I'm kind of pointing this out to the readers, Brenton.
Yeah,
Or excuse me, not the readers, the viewers. The sinuses are here. So if you place carnelians here, it'll actually help open up the sinuses, and it can help you with your allergies. And it's one of my personal favorite stones, maybe because I like to write a lot. So if you're a creative person, this is a really good stone to have. The other one, which let me reach around here to the back of my computer. This is a citrine. This is another one of my favorites. Citrine is vibrating to the yellow ray. And so the yellow ray, when we're talking about the chakras, which are the colored frequencies in the body, this is opening up the solar plexus chakra. Solar plexus is about our courage, it's about our ability to manifest, and also the citrine couple of reasons. One, because it's called the merchant stone. So if you own a business, you could put a little, they have like little tumble pieces. You could put them inside your cash register and it'll help the monetary increase that you're wanting. You can also place citrine on the body. And it's a lot of what I go into in both of the books is the fact that stones eventually will need to be cleansed because they pick up our energy. But citrine has kind of a magical quality to it. So it actually does not absorb any kind of what I would call vibes. And so it doesn't ever need to be cleansed. And so if you place citrine on the body, it opens up all of your chakra centers. And if you use it in the morning, it'll energize you so you can go out into the world and be very, very prosperous in whatever it is that you're doing. And then the other one is the emerald. Emerald is vibrating at the green ray, so it opens up the heart center. And so this can be helpful both for like an emotional heart, loving ourselves, loving mankind, but also for physical things with the heart, which unfortunately, a lot of us have. We either know somebody who has heart issues, we may have some ourselves. So emerald is a really, really powerful stone, and it's also another one that was mentioned as well in the Bible. The sapphire mentioned earlier is vibrating at the blue ray, which would open up our throat chakra. This is all about how we're communicating our truth. Are we able to say what we really think? Or even physical issues such as thyroid conditions or things like that. But again, like I mentioned a minute ago, in the Bible, in different versions, you can see that the sapphire is mentioned in some versions of the Bible, but lapis is mentioned in the later versions of the Bible. So that would be another one that we could use to spiritually, we could use the lapis to help spiritually open us up to our truth. Another really wonderful stone, I'm going to pick it up over here. Here it is. It's the amethyst. And I know most people, if you're watching this right now, I know you've seen the amethyst stone because it's very, very popular. Amethyst is actually vibrating frequency-wise to the purple ray, so it opens up your third eye center. And this is why if you go into metaphysical stores or you've been around, let's say you had a psychic reading, or you'd see a lot of amethyst around the metaphysical community because it helps us open up that intuition. There's a lot of lore around the amethyst because it was named for a little story in Greek mythology about this little girl whose name was Amethyst, and she was walking down to go pay homage to the goddess Diana when the god Bacchus, who was the god of wine and libation, stopped her and basically turned her into stone. And so Diana got very angry at him and tears out on the little girl and turned her into the beautiful stone that we now know as amethyst. And so because of that little legend, amethysts are also not only good for our intuition, but they're good to help us let go of unwanted behavior patterns or addictions and things that we're trying to release. Personally, I love chocolate, and I'm sorry, I'm always going to love it, so I don't want to get rid of it. But if there's something like a pattern of behavior that you want to rid out of your life, you can use the amethyst to help you with that. And then the last is the crystal. Clear quartz crystal is a really powerful transmitter of information, and it helps open up the crown center, which basically connects us to source and God and our feeling of being okay in the world. I think that when people are depressed and things like that, sometimes they may be needing to get their crown center open so that they can be connected to their creator and to that kind of feeling of overall well-being in the world. So they're very, very powerful. And
Excellent.
crystals, of
Thank you for
course,
sharing
also
that.
in the Bible, amethyst in the Bible, all of these used throughout the ages. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelley. What would you say for somebody, one of our listeners who this is all new to them, this concept of gemstone healing? What advice would you give them to go about approaching it and inviting it into their life?
I guess I just have to think about myself. I mean, even though, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up in the mines, I'm around rocks, I was panning for gold when I was a little girl, the idea that the stones were actually going to shift you was completely foreign to me also at one time. And when this gentleman showed this to me, I've got the stone that he first showed me. This is a piece of fluorite, a piece of green fluorite. There was a much smaller piece that I was introduced to, but he took this piece of fluorite and he goes, "Look, I'm going to show you something." And I said, "Well, what?" And he goes, sit still, lay down and just sit still. And we're going to put this fluorite right here on your forehead. And I promise you, everybody, I thought this was the craziest thing that I had ever heard. And so, but I'm open to things. I said, okay, I'm going to just sit here and see what happens. And what ends up happening typically, because it's making a shift, there nothing happens really at first. You're just sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, well, what is this all about? Then all of a sudden you feel this bzzz, I don't know how it's just like a rush of energy. Those of you, if you've ever tried meditating, when you sit in meditation for a minute, you don't feel anything and then you get kind of the rain of blessings, or you get kind of a wash of just relaxation wash over you. And the stones do the same thing. So starts out as nothing. There's this big energy shift, and then it starts to taper off. And this can sometimes take about 20 minutes for that to happen. Sometimes it's faster than that. But once I started feeling that energy, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I thought, this is this for real? Yes. I mean, different things do bring different things to people. So I guess if people are new to it, I mean, I'm into kind of a live and let live mentality. I'm not necessarily trying to convert people to this way of thinking, but I would just say, hey, you know what? Give it a try. Just see if it works for you. The reality is, whether you're consciously aware of this or not, when you wear jewelry, you're attracted to certain stones, or if you I think we all like to go out and look in the mountains and maybe you pick up a little pebble on the ground. All of those things are affecting you, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And so, one of the things that I feel like I'm supposed to do is just bring it more into your conscious awareness that these different things may be affecting you. But I can definitely appreciate if people are skeptical, because I was right where you are, believe me.
Yeah, absolutely. Need a healthy skepticism. That'll keep us asking questions.
Exactly.
I want to shift gears a little bit here, Shelley. You are very well known for utilizing gemstones with other modalities of healing, such as Reiki, chiropractic, and massage. I'm curious for our listeners who may be unfamiliar with these modalities in particular. Can you tell us a little bit about this and how you combine gemstones with them?
Yes, in the realm of energy healing, the thing is that thoughts are things. I think that we've all kind of heard the different thoughts that have been coming out recently on the fact that we can now say that thoughts are things. So when we think a thought, it's actually creating something in the physical world. I think that Dr. Emoto, with his messages in water, really demonstrated the fact that when we think things, it turns up in the physical field. So in my books, I talk about, of course, the seven chakras, which we mentioned briefly. But the fact is, you also have energy fields around the body. And so every thought or memory is basically out in your energetic field. And so when you can use a gem or mineral to move that energy field, it works very, very powerfully. Like with Reiki, if I'm sending Reiki energy to you, but I also have stone will help shift your frequency. I have chiropractic clients who use these in their chiropractic practices. Maybe you're making an adjustment, you might have a stone on somebody just to help shift the energy so that the adjustment can be more fulfilled. Massage therapists, the same thing. We know about the hot stone massage, but different gems and minerals, just moving them over the energy fields of the body. It's what I call giving the person an energetic bath. In Reiki, you're trained to kind of fluff up the energy fields, but you can do the same thing by taking a stone and just running it through people's energy fields. So it's very, very powerful.
Excellent.
So,
And for somebody who may be interested in a private session with yourself, can you give them a quick rundown of what they might expect from a private session?
yes, I do guided imagery work. And so I used to call it just past life regression, but it's really more of a soul journey. Basically, we take you into a space, into a safe space where you may be encountering loved ones who have crossed over. You may encounter people who you need to forgive or who need to forgive you, and we do that kind of work. And then we travel into the past. We learn about past times that you have been here. What did you learn? Maybe gifts and talents that you had in the past that you may not be consciously aware of now. We'll bring those to the surface so that we can see how you can use those in the future. Help you get in touch with your soul purpose, and then with all armed with all of this healing and information, I can help you go out into your future in this current life to a place where you're happy, you're healthy, you're doing what you want to be doing, and you're making a difference and fulfilling your purpose in the lifetime. And I use the gems and stones in conjunction with that as well, because again, there's the stones help us to break through the energetic component of memories that we're storing in our field so that the transformation at the end of the session is incredibly powerful.
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted there. You still there?
Yes,
Okay, sorry, Shelley.
that's okay.
Yeah, I was muting my mic for avoid any background noise. Forgot to put it back on. Okay. Kevin, everything okay on your end? I'm assuming that's okay. All right, great. And Shelley, what do you have in the works right now? What has you most excited as you look forward into the future?
I have I've just started a travel business. I'm going to finally do something that I have been talking about and thinking about doing for the last at least 10 years or more. I'm going to start taking people on some trips around the world. And
Oh,
I think
wow.
this gets along, it's along the lines of why I love the stones so much, because a lot of times I think that the stones, because they come from the earth, it's one of the ways that we can connect with different parts of the world is by, energetically connecting with the stones. But to me, also, if we can, it is incredibly powerful to travel around the world. And I travel quite extensively. And I feel like I do it because I'm trying to go back to some of the places where I've lived in previous lives. And so I want to start taking people on some of these trips and helping them tap into that. That's one of the things that, Edgar Cayce was so big on in terms of the stones, is the fact that when you work with stones or when you go to different places, that by just doing that, you're kind of healing a part of you from those past lives so that you can become more fully yourself in this current lifetime. So I'm very, very excited about that. And I've got a new
Absolutely.
website for it. It's called redskytravelandtours.com. And so I hope
Excellent.
people will check
Excellent.
it out and come on a trip with me sometime.
We'll make sure we give our listeners a link to that as well. I'm curious, Shelley, as you look at the big picture, I guess outside your own line of work, what has you most excited as we move into the future? I know we're in a time that is really difficult for a lot of people. So as we're moving through this, what has you most excited and inspired?
I think that when I think about how long I've been doing this work, Brenton, which is a little while, when I first got into it, I don't think people were quite as open to the things that you and I are talking about. I think that mass consciousness has shifted, and so more people have learned about spiritual matters. More people are open to the idea that there's more to them than just their physical body. And so I think on that level, we expected a shift to occur, and I think that shift has occurred. I think there are a lot of things in the world that are obviously troubling, and I feel like it's really important that each of us just be as calm as we can within ourselves and not buy into that frenzy and that the chaos of everything, and just try to realize that, if we're being peaceful within ourselves and we send that peaceful vibration out, that we can create what we want to see in the world by simply just being as peaceful as we can be.
Excellent. That's perfect. Well, that's a good piece of advice to end on, Shelley. I thank you so much for being with us today on the show. It's such a pleasure listening to you discuss gemstones and your incredible expertise. So thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for being a part of the A.R.E family. We are honored to have you.
Thank you, Brenton. Thank you so much for everything. And I just wish everybody a beautiful 2016 and a wonderful, wonderful future. Thank you.
To learn more about Dr. Shelley Kaehr, you can visit her website at pastlifelady.com, or you can check her out on Facebook at Past Life Lady. To learn more about her new travel tours she mentioned, you can visit her website at redskytraveltours.com. If you'd like to purchase her beautiful new book, Edgar Cayce Sacred Stones, the A to Z Guide to Working with Gems to Enhance Your Life and Health, you can visit our website at arecatalog.com. On behalf of everyone here at the Association for Research and Enlightenment, and of course moretalk.tv, I'm your host Brenton Bickerstaff, reminding you to always take care of yourself, mind, body, and soul. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Thank you so much for tuning in to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Much love.